Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this another masterclass on CXO Genie, CXO Genie Masterclass, where today we are talking about unlocking leadership potential, the ROI of executive coaching. So today we live in the age of coaches, right? So we have literally coach for everything, right? So there is a breathing coach, there is a relationship coach, a business coach, a career coach. But how can an executive coach really make a difference? And what are some of the different perspectives that you can look at when it comes to executive coaching? So that's what we'll be discussing today. I heard Dr. Corrie in an event, and I was completely blown away that, this is a completely fresh way and a different way at looking at executive coaching. And that's when I kind of requested Dr. Corrie to come in and take this session for us. So before I move on to Dr. Corrie's session today, let me just do a quick introduction about CXO Genie for those of you who don't know what CXO Genie is. Basically, so I'm a former CFO, now expanding CXO Genie Middle East. I'm a trainer and a mentor as well. So I've worked, I've built a following of 30,000 on LinkedIn. I also have a training academy. About CXO Genie, so CXO Genie is a networking platform for CXOs where we come together, try and solve every problem. So we are all connected. Our vision is to become the most trusted peer-to-peer CXO network. And what we have been, it's a decade-old platform now, and now we are slowly expanding in the Middle East and other geographies as well. So what we have been able to accomplish so far is that we have 1,000 plus active members across different communities across the globe. In fact, we have been able to provide some unique talent solutions for our members as well. We've placed more than 2,000 plus candidates through our proprietary app, more than 200 CFO jobs being posted as well. We have our own resource repository called CXOverse, where you can find more than 300 proprietary videos, 100 plus white papers and solutions. We are growing and trying to add to the knowledge base of our members on a continuous basis. So we are all connected through our unique app that is called the CXO Genie app, which is a very intuitively designed app. It allows you to do a lot of things. It helps you connect with members. It allows you to post jobs for your teams, refer, and participate in events, forums, discussions, all of those things. So it's a nice app. So if you still haven't got a chance to try it out, please do download the CXO Genie app and try it out. Just a quick reminder of our upcoming event, which is called CXO Genie Rejuvenate. That's happening on 31st of January to 2nd of February. It's going to be a summit and retreat. It will be hosted in Dubai Parks and Resorts, Lapita, which is a Marriott Autograph Collection resort. And, so I'm hoping to see all of you there. Most of you might have received an email about the Rejuvenate series as well. If any of you are interested, please feel free to reach out to us or get in touch with our team. The details can also be found out on the QR code that's available on your screen. So moving on to today's topic, right? So like I mentioned to you, I heard Dr. Corrie in a seminar, and I was completely blown away by the kind of details that he had to share about executive coaching. And I never actually had looked at executive coaching in this particular way. So that's what kind of encouraged me to kind of bring Dr. Corrie and say that this is something which our CXO members need to know for sure. So that's what excited me, and I'm happy that Dr. Corrie is now conducting this session for us today. So before we get into the session, let me do a quick round of introduction. It's an honor to introduce Dr. Corrie Block, a globally recognized executive coach, speaker, and expert in business strategy, leadership, and organizational behavior. With over 25 years of experience working with 150 plus companies across industries, Dr. Corrie combines deep insights with practical solutions to transform businesses and business leaders. He is a professor of strategic management, a certified master neuroplastician, and an accomplished author of best-selling books, Spartan CEO and Love at Work. With advanced degrees from prestigious institutions, including a PhD and certifications from Harvard and MIT, Dr. Corrie's expertise spans from employee engagement to the future of work. As a founder of Paragon, he has helped clients like Microsoft and the World Bank and countless startups achieve meaningful growth. Let's give a warm welcome to Dr. Corrie. Dr. Corrie, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much. I'm just going to share my screen here. And perfect. Now you can see my slide. We have a lot to get through today. The reason is because executive coaching is one of the most powerful investments you can make. I understand the majority of you here in the room are CFOs, which is great because I'm also a numbers guy. And so you're going to love this. because there's not a lot of coaches that think financially about executive coaching, and there's not a lot of executives that think financially about executive coaching. I'm going to give you the tools to think about this as an investment. And I'll just let you know now, I just got the numbers back this week. My case study running at eAnd. So I don't know if you're familiar with Etisalat here in Dubai. eAnd is one of the largest organizations we have here at telecommunications. They have more than 80,000 employees. And I have been coaching 6 of their GCXOs and CXOs over the last year. We did an ROI calculation on that engagement. And depending on the role per role, each of those roles has its own ROI on that executive coaching engagement. And I did not do the calculations myself, the CFO did them. And they are ranging in from 53x to 901x in 1 year on executive coaching. So I wanted to start with that because I'm super proud of it. And I want you to know that this is not a cost. And I will show you how it's not a cost because, again, I'm with you on the numbers. All right. My introduction
Corrie,
is
are you
already
sharing the
done.
screen? I can't see the screen yet.
Yeah, I'm sharing. The slides are up. Slides are up.
No.
What can you see?
No, you're not sharing the screen. So
Indeed, I am.
No,
It's telling me I am.
maybe it's on a different screen.
All right. So this is I've already done the intro. We have already been introduced,
Yeah.
so we could skip this. But excellent. I'm going to help you to answer this question, right? Does coaching work? Jack Welch says yes. Good coaches provide a truly important service. They tell you the truth when no one else will. And the reason I brought this quote up is because it's really irritating to me that people don't really think about it. This is Jack Welch. He was the chairman and CEO of General Electric. They're one of the largest companies in the world. Me, as a shareholder in General Electric, I would want to know who it is that Jack Welch, as the chairman and CEO of a company that I'm investing in, thinks is providing him the truly important service of telling him the truth when no one else will. And so there's a big differentiator between somebody who calls himself a coach and somebody who really is a qualified executive coach. We'll get into that today. But one of the reasons why we're getting into that is because people like Jack Welch use executive coaching. And it's not just any coach that can coach somebody like Jack Welch. And the reason why executive coaching is different is because Olympic athletes are different, right? We would never send an Olympic athlete to compete in the Olympic Games without a coach. So it doesn't make sense to me that we're always sending our CEOs to lead our organizations without one. Now, why do you think it is that not more of our CXOs and CEOs are getting into executive coaching and understanding the benefit of it? Well, I think there's 2 major problems. One, executives think of coaching as a punishment for bad performance or poor behavior. Sometimes it's a board of executives that calls me and board of directors calls me and says, hey, we want you to coach the CEO and we want a behavior change. We want your performance better. But honestly, if you're broken and you need to be fixed, that is not my job, okay? That is a therapist. If you're broken and you need to be fixed, go get a therapist. If you're talented and you think you might be an Olympian in whatever game that you're playing, whether it's business or athletics, that's when you get a coach. So if you've got kids, I've got 5 kids. If you notice on the football field on a Saturday afternoon when you're there with your family that your child is running a little faster and kicking a little bit more accurately than the other kids on the football pitch, what do? You get them a coach, right? Because coaching is a benefit for talent, not a punishment for poor performance. That's challenge number 1. Executive coaching isn't a fix for bad leadership. It's a benefit afforded to amazing talent. You qualify for the Olympics, you get a coach. That's the deal. Challenge number 2, the coaching industry is promoting a kind of coaching that isn't working at the executive level. As Dawal told us, you can get a coach for breathing, you can get a coach for relationships, you can get a coach for mindfulness and meditation. That is not what executives need. Executives need executive coaches. And that's not what the coaching industry globally is producing really, really well. So that's the big challenge that I'm trying to address now. My book on this subject is called Chief Executive Coach. It is in publication at this time, and it should be ready in about February or March. If you let Dawal and the team know, I'll let you know, of course, when the book comes out, and then you can read all of the research for yourself. But a good deal of it I'm going to introduce to you today. Non-advisory coaching is the kind of coaching where you just ask questions and then have somebody else, have the coachee, the executive, produce their own insights and their own answers. Well, that doesn't work for Olympic athletes, and it doesn't work at the executive level. You will never find an Olympic athlete without an Olympic coach, and you will never find an Olympic coach asking their athlete, well, what exercises do you think you should try today? You know, that's non-advisory coaching doesn't work at the executive level, and it isn't coaching per se. It is a kind of coaching. So non-advisory coaching reaches its limits in the C-suite. Those are the big challenges that I see in the coaching industry. Humans are intensely social animals. We're only at our best when somebody else is with us, and coaching is the only real relationship that exists between two humans where both humans are completely 100% focused on the performance level of one human, right? So both of us are focused on your performance level. That's the job of a coach, is to make sure that you're performing at your natural best. And again, that is not, it's not a punishment for bad behavior, and it is not a fix for broken people. It is a benefit afforded to talent. And so the highest level surgeons in the world have coaches, the highest level violin players have coaches, and the majority of the FTSE 100 and Fortune 500 CXOs, they have coaches too. That's how they got there, and very often that's how they stay there. So what do you call an Olympic athlete without an Olympic coach? This is one of my favorite jokes. You ready? Retired. We all know that, right? Like, you're never going to find an Olympic athlete without an Olympic coach, right? So an Olympic athlete without a coach must be retired. And yet Olympians are to athletics as a domain what executives are to business as a domain. So I don't know, what do you call a CEO without a coach? Maybe missing something? I don't know. The benefits of coaching are really well established. I'll just give you one simple case study from my work in the last couple of years. This is Mark. In only 6 months of coaching, he says, this is his feedback, by the way. You can find this recommendation on my LinkedIn page in his words, right? So this is not just me throwing up a slide for you. I just want you to see what can happen. He says he's arranged his schedule to be more efficient. He's got daily exercise. He's got more quality time with his family, better study and self-improvement time, more effective working hours. He's achieved a promotion and a title change, both of which I helped him with. It was really fun going through this big process with him. But he got a salary adjustment that he wanted to, which effectively made my coaching free, which was also a great benefit, and launched into an MBA program. And he started that program about 18 months ago and finished it about 3 months ago. And then he wrote to me and he said, hey, I'm finished the MBA that I started when I was with you. And I'm just absolutely proud of him, because when you get into a good coaching relationship like this, the trajectory of your life changes, and it's not just your performance level as an individual that benefits, but the performance level of the entire organization. Can you imagine how much more money his organization made as a result of him having gotten control of his time, his health, his exercise, his study, his work-life balance? And yes, all of these things have an incredible impact on the bottom line, and I'll show you how we calculate the impact on the bottom line. This is why executives need coaches, and this is the wizard wheel, as I'm calling it now. I probably need a better name for it, but executives need advisory coaching tailored for peak performance, where the language barrier contributes to a defensive shift, resulting in executive isolation, which requires external objectivity, because high stakes decisions reinforce the case for advisory coaching. What kind of advisory coaching exactly? Well, wizard expertise. And all of this will be outlined in the book, but I do want to give you a really quick kind of rundown of these 7 major challenges that executives face that non-executives don't face. And so when I say executives, I'm talking about C-level, right? So we're talking about, depending on the leadership theorist you follow, it's L0, L1, or N and N-1. So it's the C-suite. And once you get into the C-suite, there's a lot of things that you'll face that you don't face before you get that. And this is the difference between coaching a CFO and a deputy CFO. So these are the things that are exaggerated when I'm coaching a CFO or a CEO or a CHRO, as opposed to a deputy C at that level, right? So number 1 is advisory coaching. Like I said, non-advisory coaching isn't coaching. It is a kind of coaching. And it's a kind of coaching that reaches its limits in the C-suite. So there you've got some comparative modalities of coaching from strict non-advisory. And yes, silence is being taught as a non-advisory coaching modality. But I guarantee you, if you sit in your CEO's office as a coach and you just sit there for an hour in complete silence, they're going to kick you out of the office. It's not a really useful coaching modality for the C-suite. So executive coaching sort of starts after that, where yeah, we hold space and wait for thought and insight to come, but we don't hold it for long, right? I'm not going to sit there for 20 minutes waiting for you to come to an insight. No, my job is to proceed through deep questioning, through rhetorical questioning, through methodological coaching, through tactical and mentoring coaching, consultative coaching, strategic coaching, absolutely, and prescriptive coaching is where we get into like Olympic level coaching, where do this, do this, do this, and if they do it, then they're going to perform better. Directive coaching is a little bit more strict and stern, and a little more like that's a military style of coaching. And then sometimes I've been called on by boards of directors, yes, it's not completely unheard of, to do interventional coaching or even punitive coaching. And yeah, I have been called by boards of directors to say, hey, please come and work with our CEO for a year. We don't want to let them go, but we need to see some behavior change. We need to see some performance improvement. So that is also a kind of coaching. I hope this all makes sense to you, because executive coaching is a pretty big topic and it's a pretty awesome discipline, and it's unbelievably profitable if you get it right in your organization. So we need advisory coaching. Executive coaching is a co-creative process. Okay, this is my definition of it, in which a coach and executive elicit insights and actions from each other to develop the mindset and skill set required for the executive to perform at their natural best in their executive role. And I want you to think of this in the same way that an Olympic athlete and Olympic coach might tie together. Someone like Michael Phelps, maybe you've heard of Michael Phelps. He's the most decorated Olympian in all of Olympic Games history. He's got 39 world records, 28 Olympic medals, 23 of which were gold. And through 5 Olympic Games, he had one coach, and his coach's name is Bob Bowman. Bob Bowman is the guy that helped Michael Phelps fix his butterfly stroke. And I'm pretty sure that the entire sport of swimming is grateful that Bob Bowman didn't just hold space and hope that Michael Phelps came to some kind of insight on how to fix his butterfly stroke. Okay, he didn't just advance Michael Phelps's performance level. Bob Bowman's influence advanced the entire sport of swimming altogether. And that's not different in business than it is in athletics. I'll give you another example. Google, for example, you'll know the names Eric Schmidt, he was the first CEO of Google. Larry Page came right after him, and then Sundar Pichai is now the current CEO of Google. All 3 of these gentlemen, all 3 CEOs of Google, had an executive coach. All of their executive coach was the same man. His name is Bill Campbell, and he's passed away recently, but he's called the $1 trillion coach for that reason, because at the highest level of play in every economic game, you'll find a high performance player, and next to them, right next to them, you'll find their high performance coach. So for Google, it was Bill Campbell, and Bill Campbell did for technology what Bob Bowman did for swimming. Okay, so I want you to see that kind of parallel so we understand what level we're playing at here. Peak performance is the first major pressure. So they need advisory coaches at the executive level because of peak performance pressures. High performance athletes train 90% of the time. They're with their coaches, they're with their trainers 90% of the time, and they're performing on the field of competition maybe 10% of the time, maybe less, right? 100-meter sprinters perform for seconds, not the hours and days and years compared to the years that they train, right? So but executives, on the other hand, they're being coached or trained maybe 10% of the time, if at all, and they're on the field of competition 90% of the time, and that makes coaching at least 9 times more critical from a high performance perspective for business leaders than it is for athletes. And that's not the only thing that makes it more critical. It's not that just they're not spending enough time in coaching to develop themselves, but also the stakes in business are far higher. If an Olympic athlete loses something, maybe they miss out on a gold medal, or maybe their nation is a little bit disappointed, but if a CEO of a major multinational like EAN makes a critical error on any given day, there's 1,000 families whose livelihoods are lost. All right, there's $1 million off of the bottom line. There's 4% off of the stock price, and that's catastrophic for people. We can't allow our organizations to allow our leaders to accept that kind of risk, when we could mitigate that by having exceptional high-performing players coached by high-performing coaches. The second major challenge that executives face is the language barrier. All of you are CFOs, so probably the majority of you will have started in the finance function. You did an MBA in finance, you did a finance degree, and then you started out as an accountant and became an accounting manager, and then a finance controller, and then a finance manager, and then a deputy CFO, and then you became a CFO at some point, which is great, you know, but for the 20 years of your career, you have been operating inside the finance function. So when you get to the C-suite, you think that everybody else on the C-suite, the CHRO, the CMO, the CIO, the CEO, they should all be speaking finance just as well as you can. Well, nobody can speak finance as well as you can. You are the subject matter expert in finance. So you're saying finance, 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 and HR is saying, well, I don't understand what an NPV and delay cost calculation is. I don't understand what WACC has anything to do with anything. Meanwhile, they're talking about customer lifetime value and employee retention and other things that aren't really very important to the finance function. And so that's why the friction on the C-suite happens in that language barrier between the CHRO who's been raised in HR language, the CIO who's been raised, spent 30 years in data language, right, digital language, and they don't speak each other's languages, and they all think that their own language is the most important language of the organization. So if they're not prepared for this kind of language barrier, then it can be really, really shocking for you as a CFO to get up there and realize that people don't value finance the way that you value finance. And we think this image on the screen here, this is the actual language barrier, but that's not as complex as it is. This is the actual language barrier now. The language of specialization in finance and HR and marketing is much more nuanced now than it was 3 years ago. So if you don't have a coach that's able to speak those languages and understand that vocabulary and help their executive to notice that language barrier, then yeah, you're going to run into significant communication problems on the C-suite when one member of the executive committee doesn't understand another member of the executive committee, and they marginalize each other as though they each are speaking the most important language. And that it's a very silly thing, but I have seen it at least 100 times cause significant and unnecessary friction on the executive committee, where good coaching can help a team communicate in each other's languages and can help each executive to translate from one language into the languages of the other departments in a much more effective way. The next one is defensive shift. This is something that a C-suiter is going to feel that they're not going to feel before this. Look, there's always a bit of tension in an organization when somebody gets a job and then other people don't get the job. But in the C-suite, this is the highest level, right? That's when you go up there and there's a major exponential shift in your authority. There's an exponential shift in your earning potential, your bonus potential, your profit sharing, whatever your benefits are. There's an exponential shift in benefits. And when you get up there, it can be lonely up there. We'll talk about that in a second, but when you get up there, that's probably the first time where you're at the top of the ladder, right? As a CFO, you are now, for the very first time in your career, the very pinnacle of the finance function in your organization. You're not looking up because there's no more up, okay? So now then you become very aware of the people that are around you that maybe want your position or are questioning your competence or weren't so excited about you getting that job. And so some of those challenges, and this isn't every organization. Sam Altman, about a year ago from OpenAI, faced this challenge from his other executives and from his board of directors. His executives complained about his communication style because he was in a defensive posture, and the board of directors fired him, and then he got an open letter signed by almost every member of OpenAI saying that no, they want him as their leader, and they reinstated him. But even in large, established, amazing companies with great, fantastic, innovative leaders like Sam Altman, you'll find a defensive shift. It's a purely human, purely emotional defensive posture that seems to happen only on the executive suite in this kind of intensity. The next challenge that CXOs are facing is isolation. You've heard it's lonely at the top. Well, that turns out to be pretty true. I'm sure that you can see as a CFO that, yeah, it's a little bit more lonely now than it has been. You've always, before you became CFO, you've always had somebody else to go to in the finance function, right? So if you were the finance manager, you had the deputy CFO to talk to. And if you were the deputy CFO, you had your CFO to bounce ideas off of and, protect your interests and things like that. But once you're the CFO, that's it. You're the top of the finance function. And so it can be really isolating up there because there's no more mentors left. There's no one above the CFO in finance to help help lead you through this, right? So there's a lack of mentorship immediately, and nobody tells you about that. They don't prepare you for it. And so there can be an echo chamber effect. You surround yourself with people that you like because you want to feel that affinity and that care. So you surround with people that you like or that are like you, and you end up with an echo chamber effect. Or you can find that people below you are trying to protect you from hearing the real news of what's going on in the organization or in the market. And so there's information gatekeeping by people who are either positively trying to protect you or negatively trying to hurt you. And that happens in that level and can contribute to your executive isolation. And then the last one I think was probably the most nefarious is the authenticity paradox. I don't know how many books I read every year telling me that leaders need to be vulnerable, we need to be transparent, we need to be authentic. But we can't be authentic. If I as a CEO of a company of 40,000 employees, if I have imposter syndrome or some sort of insecurity about a decision that I'm considering, I can't tell my board of directors that. I'm not talking to my executive committee about that, because that will erode their confidence in my leadership. This is the one place in leadership where authenticity erodes confidence, right? So you can be transparent, but only so much. You can be authentic, but not too much, right? And that's why it's really important, because of that executive isolation, to have a really highly qualified coach in the room with each of your executives, so they have someone that's external to bounce ideas off of and just think out loud with, because authenticity at this level can often be a double-edged sword. The next big challenge that your CXOs are going to face is external objectivity. Now, some of you will recognize this. This gentleman is HR head of Tata Group, and I did a masterclass for Tata Group a number of months ago on executive coaching for exactly this reason. And each of their 20 CHROs was going through the process of getting ICF certification for coaching during this particular initiative. And I was there as a masterclass on executive coaching specifically. And one of the things that I said to them that really disappointed them, I said, look, all of you are lovely people, and I think what you're doing is wonderful, and I think the ICF certification is great. It's really going to help you to have a coaching style of management, but it will not help you talk to your executives. Your executives will not be open with you about the things that you want them to be open with you about, because you're internal. Your CHROs inside the same organization, subject to the same policy manuals, the same handbooks, the same policies as they are. And so they're not going to give you the kind of transparency and authenticity that they need to provide in order for them to process what's going on with them and their performance. So yeah, internal coaching at the executive level is a myth. It does not work. And there's tons and tons of research behind this. Again, all of this is in my book. And if you're interested in the book, it'll be out in a couple of months, and I'm happy to send it to you. But yeah, it was a great conversation with Tata Group, and I just told them, look, I love what you're doing, but it's not going to work for your executives. They need something a little bit more robust. They need someone that they can trust to be completely objective, who doesn't have any political skin in the game, who gets paid the same no matter what happens, and they need to be able to trust them so that they can be authentic, so to really process what their strategies and decision-making ideas are. The last one, and I think this was probably such a great image for this, high stakes decisions. Some of you will remember in the fall of 2008 when Bear Stearns collapsed. It was going down, I think it was fall of 2007, actually, it started to really go down. And it was Jimmy Kane who was the CEO at that time, and he was replaced as CEO in January of 2008. And by March, Bear Stearns had been sold for $2 a share to Jamie Dimon. And it was a really catastrophic set of decisions. And this is the thing, right? If Jimmy Kane had a coach with him, that coach would have been able to ask some really interesting, excellent, challenging questions of Jimmy during that time. And in the full case study for this particular story, I think there's a chance that Bear Stearns could have been saved, and it wouldn't have had to, do the famous $2 fire sale at, midnight on a Saturday night to try to save the bank. I think they could have saved it, but the CEO and the chairman of the board were both complete individualists. They weren't getting coaching, they weren't collaborative, and as a result, millions, not just Jimmy Kane lost his job, right? Millions and millions and millions of people lost their life savings, they lost their houses, they lost their pension plans, and that is very high stakes decision making. anyone who's making high stakes decisions like that should have a high performance executive coach next to them, because the cost of making a bad decision just is too high to not do that. So that's my brief rundown of the major challenges and why executives need coaches. I hope that it was enough to at least push the needle for you to consider the fact that, yeah, there's a reason why the majority of the FTSE 100 and the Fortune 500 CXOs all have coaches. There's a reason why the top performing companies in the world all invest in executive coaching. And that is because there's no such thing as an Olympic athlete without an Olympic coach in any domain: violin playing, surgery, dancing, art, music. All the top performers all have coaches, and it is exactly the same in business. Right. So what kind of coaches can coach an executive at this level? Wizards. Yes, we do not need somebody to walk into your CEO's office and say, I've got a 10-step plan for your leadership. Just follow these 10 steps and we're going to figure out who you are and how you want to lead. No, anybody that walks into your CXO's office with a roadmap for success, you immediately kick them out. What your CXOs really need isn't a 10-step plan for success. What they need is a wizard with a compass and a bag full of tools. Okay, so the best executive coaches that I know, they have multiple certifications. They have experience in multiple domains across multiple industries. They're not specialists in telecommunications. I have worked in everything from FMCG to luxury shoes to oil and gas, power and water. I've worked across all of the different departments, from HR to AI. Like, you have to have that breadth of experience in order to be able to provide excellent coaching to an excellent executive. And I'll just tell you now, Bob Bowman was not ever a competitive swimmer, and yet he coached the most high performing, the highest decorated Olympian in all of athletic history, Michael Phelps. And Bob Bowman was not a competitive swimmer, so he didn't draw on his experience as a competitive swimmer. No, he drew on his knowledge and experience as a coach and as a tactician and as a scientist. He broke that swimmer's move down into tiny little pieces, and they fixed each little piece until Michael was just moving differently through the water, both physically and mentally. And that is the kind of coach that your CXOs need. And I know there's not a lot of us out there, but we're getting better at collecting ourselves, and I know a lot of them. So if you want to meet with anybody and I'm not your cup of tea and you don't want to meet with me, that's fine. Just let me know. I will definitely introduce you to half a dozen amazing executive coaching wizards. So I've got a couple of case studies I want to highlight to you why it's important that your CXO or CEO's coach is kind of a wizard with a warehouse of tools rather than a wayfinder with a roadmap. Case study number one, this is one of my clients in the last couple of years, GCHRO with 75,000 employees. She was struggling to manage time demands. And you think that at that highest level, you'd think they'd have it all together, right? Well, no, they don't. They don't have it all together. It's like work-life balance is a myth, and they're struggling to balance time and prioritization, and they don't want to micromanage, but they don't know how to empower. And finding that perfect balance of empowerment and training and getting into the leverage gap of helping people to become worthy of that trust and empowerment and authority. It was very, very challenging for her, given the number of people that were making demands on her time. And so we shifted her management style to a coaching style. I helped her with that, and I worked on a principle I call aggressive empowerment, which I can teach you in another masterclass. But we ended up harvesting an average of 15 hours weekly, more hours for her to spend in strategic work, and that just changed the game. That changed not just how productive she was in her role, but her experience of her role. So she was just a lot better balanced as the GCHRO of this company. Coach as confidant. It was a really good one, actually, because it's automotive sector CEO. He's got 6,000 employees. He came to me and he says, listen, Dr. Corrie, I'm going to retire in 8 years from now. And I said, that's good. Congratulations. And he says, yeah, I'm just not sure if I have a business model that's going to last that long. And I'm like, well, you don't want your board of directors to hear you thinking that. And he's like, no, I don't, but you're my coach. So what do I do? Right. And I was like, okay, good. I understand. But who's the CEO going to talk to about that? They're going to talk to you, the CFO? No, they're going to talk to, you're going to talk to their wife. His wife loves him, but she has no idea how to help him with that. Like, she's a lovely woman, but Yeah, she doesn't have tools for that. And he can't tell the board of directors that he's feeling insecure about the automotive industry in general, and yet he's the CEO of their company. No, that's the coach's job. Coach's job is to hear all of those insecurities and deal with all of that authenticity, and then help the executive to perform at their natural best. So yeah, it was really fun. We put together a 6-month plan. He stuck to the plan. By the end of the 6 months, he had 3 new major initiatives. There was 16 minor initiatives going on in the organization as a result of that. And then we did the future of work retreat for him and for his top 30 people, and I helped to facilitate that as well. And we came up with some unbelievable strategies. So within 9 months, the entire organization had retooled and refueled to meet this guy's what used to be imposter syndrome, but was now incredible confidence as he led the organization into a rapidly changing economic environment. Last case study for Wizards over Wayfinders is the coach as counselor. I will never forget this day. I walked into my CEO client's office. He's got 35,000 employees, and I sat down and I pulled up my laptop and I'm like, how are you doing today? And he looks at me and he says, Dr. Corrie, no laptop today. I said, what do you mean? He says, no notes, just close it. So I closed my laptop, put my phone away, everything. And he just sat down and he said, my wife has asked me for a divorce. We've been married 30 years. And I said, well, do you have a therapist? He says, yeah, I have a therapist, but my therapist doesn't have tools for this. I said, what do you mean? He says, I'm reading M&A documents for an acquisition. It's about $500 million. And we're acquiring a company with around 6,000 employees in it, meaning that I've got 41,000 people counting on my leadership, and I'm reading contracts through depression and anger and sadness, and I don't know what to do, and I don't have tools for that. My therapist doesn't have tools for that. He says, you're my coach. What have you got? And that for me was such an amazing moment. That was my time to shine as a coach, where I could say, yeah, actually, you know what? I have tools for that. I can help you find focus. I can help you unload your emotional reaction. I can help you detoxify the triggers that you're facing every day. And I can help you read those contracts and agreements through clear eyes with a focused heart, so you can take care of the 41,000 families that are in your care before you go home and take care of the one family that's caring for you. And so we put together a plan for him. He followed that plan, and it was amazing. His board of directors never knew what we were talking about in that room, but I guarantee you it saved them millions of dollars in terrible mistakes and poor leadership. And yeah, he even fixed his marriage at the end. So it was all in all, a very, very good engagement. But it's, again, who do CEOs talk to about that? Who's a CHRO or a CIO going to talk to when they're having significant personal challenges, and those significant personal challenges are impacting on their ability to drive performance in their organization? And this is not a new thing, and is not it's very well hidden. But one of the greatest case studies for this is Sheryl Sandberg, COO of Facebook. When her husband died, she was in critical emotional turmoil. Well, who's got tools for that? And she said in her letter, she wrote an open letter to all of her followers, 2 million followers on Facebook, talking about pain and how to navigate pain in an executive role. And she talked about the benefit and value of having the right coach next to her while she was processing that. Absolutely, that was a performance differentiator for a high-performing executive in a high-stakes role in a high-stakes digital game. So yeah, there's lots of public examples, there's lots of private examples, but we need wizards in our CEOs' offices to help them process those things that nobody else can process with them. And when you're coaching a CXO, you're not just influencing one person, you're influencing the direction of an entire organization, maybe the whole industry, and maybe the economy, as Sheryl Sandberg's coach was. So what are the proven effects of executive coaching? This part I'm going to run through really quickly. And if you want these stats, all of this is research-based. This is all highly academic. And so I just want to show you the numbers so that you can see them. But if you want to see the raw materials, get in contact with me. I will share the actual citations and sources with you. I'm a scientist first. So from the International Coaching Federation, 96% of executives who tried executive coaching said that they would do it again. 86% of organizations reported a positive ROI. A study of more than 100 executives from 56 organizations found that the majority of participants reported between $100,000 and $1 million as the return on investment in executive coaching. 100 executives, 56 different organizations, okay? Keep in mind, this is highly statistically significant. 77% of executives found that coaching had a significant impact on their performance, with an average ROI on EC at 788%. These are all different research organizations finding the same basic outcome. McGovern is another one that found that EC study averaged 6x ROI. And another meta-analysis found the effects of executive coaching across 6 different studies. Executives indicated a massive average effect size of 1.27. And for those of you who are really cool and love statistics like I do, that means that it raised them to the 89% performance level across all of the executives. So that's 89th percentile, right, as a result of executive coaching. So if you want your CEO to perform at the 89th percentile as a CEO, perhaps coaching might help them to develop in the same way that it helps an athlete turn into an Olympian, right? There's a Manchester study. I'm not going to list all of these off for you. There's incredible benefits to the organization and incredible benefits specifically outlined by the executives themselves. Teamwork improvements, working relationships improvements, job satisfaction, conflict reduction, organizational commitment improves, all of that as a result of executive coaching. So what challenges do you face or anticipate in implementing coaching for your teams and your executives? The number one challenge is we can't afford it. Am I right? We're all CFOs. We think in numbers. Who wants to know the numbers? You want to see the numbers? Let's look at the numbers. All right. We're going to talk about ROI models. This is executive coaching ROI models because I studied finance at Harvard. I know how to do this. I can build a calculator. So what I've done is I've actually built 4 ROI calculators, and I'm willing to share the calculator with you at the end. I'll show you how to get a hold of that. But I want to walk you through this so you can see that there's actually people thinking in your finance language about one of the most influential investments that you can make in executive development, okay? Executives don't need off-the-shelf training. It doesn't matter if it comes from Harvard or Cambridge. Their roles are too nuanced, their industries are too disruptive, and so really what we need is just a high-performance coach next to a high-performing executive. So this is how we figure out the ROI on it. We're going to look at the shorthand model, the preventative maintenance model, the KPI mapping model, and the ROI Institute model. And each of these should just take a couple of minutes, and then I'm going to open it up for questions, all right? Shorthand model is an assumptive model. And so what you want to do is you fill in the columns there, and it's basically a narrative assumptive model. So you'll see there are assumptions in here, but the ROI is not 0 and it's not $1 billion. So somewhere in here, we're going to find that the assumptions sort of check out. It's a very quick, like I said, it's a shorthand model, right? So it's a very quick kind of acid test for whether or not executive coaching is providing value. This is an actual CEO that I coached in this particular models a few years ago. So for every $20 million in decision-making volume, there's a 15% chance that over a year's time, executive coaching will help me to either avoid a $1 million mistake or notice a similar value opportunity that I wouldn't have seen otherwise. Overall, I'm responsible for a total of $200 million in decision volume per year, and the executive coaching fees are $60,000 per year. Therefore, the risk-weighted ROI is 25x. Again, full of assumptions, but it's subjective in the mind of the CXO, not in the mind of the coach. The CEO is answering these questions, and they're saying, yeah, you know what? For every $20 million in decision-making volume, I'll probably avoid a $1 million mistake or capture a $1 million opportunity as a result of this person's influence on my life, and therefore 25x per year is a pretty good assumptive shorthand ROI. The delay cost on this is at the bottom. If you were offered an investment that returned 25x per year, how much would you be willing to invest today? Also, you might want to know that you're burning $4,000 a day every day you delay the decision to get into executive coaching. And if you started coaching today, you'll break even in 15 days. So that's model number 1. It's these models rise in level of complexity and accuracy. So number 2 is preventative maintenance model. Most executive coaching ROI studies report between 600 and 900% ROI. This is true. And so what I've done is I've actually taken a preventative maintenance investment benchmarking study, and it's an absolute meta study, right? So there's 545% ROI is the average ROI across all industries for investing an average of between 4.5% and 7.5% of the total value of a hard asset, like a petrochem factory or an FMCG manufacturing plant or something like that, any kind of hard asset, if you invest 4.5 to 7.5% of the total value annually in maintenance, then your return on investment is going to be 545%. So I felt like this was a pretty good opportunity for us to use it as a budgeting model. And so the budgeting model is actually quite complex. What we do is we're going to, instead of calculating just the value of the asset, what we're going to calculate is the total cost of employment for an executive. So we start with things like base salary, bonuses, stock options, signing bonus. This is an actual case study, down to club memberships, private jets. I don't have private jets in my life. Maybe you do. But yeah, anyway, so we calculate this total direct cost. We add it to the total indirect cost, things like training and development, severance, insurance, administrative or opportunity costs. And we end up with a total cost of employment of about $2.8 million for this particular executive, even though their base salary is only $750,000. So the CXO TCOE as a multiple of salary is 3.8x, right? You take the 750,000 times 3.8, and that's the total cost of employment. And what that means is with executive coaching budget of a minimum of $129,000 a year and a maximum of $215,000 a year, you should get an ROI of at least 545%, right? And you think, but human capital is not the same as an industrial asset. And you're absolutely right about that. Humans are less reliable, we are less consistent, and we are less predictable, which means the ROI is assumptively far higher than the 545% if you make a similar level of investment. And this works out really well in the real world. If you macro scale this up to like some of the largest or best known executive coaches in the world, like this guy, some of you have heard of Tony Robbins. If we look at the average S&P 500 CEO's TCOE, it's $16.7 million US. That's their direct employment cost every year. That's the average across the 500 companies, right? And so if we're looking at a budget, a preventative maintenance budget of around $1 million per year. And guess what? That's what Tony Robbins charges as an executive coach for each one of his clients, is $1 million a year. So it works out pretty well as an acid test. And that's, again, it's an assumptive model, but we're getting a little bit more accurate. And this is more accurate still, the KPI mapping model. This one's my favorite one because I think this is the perfect blend of accuracy and assumption, and it gives all of the assumptions to the client, none of it in the hands of the coach. So all of my calculations that I talked to you about at EN were done with this model. And what we do is in this model, we take the goals of executive coaching, because some of those goals might be weight loss, right? But what executive is going to tell their CHRO, oh yeah, I'm working on weight loss, right? Or, I'm a reading goal, or I have a limiting belief and I feel I've got imposter syndrome. Like, they're not going to declare those things. So we want to keep the goals private, but we want to attach them to something that has real monetary value. And the things in the organization that have real monetary value that we can calculate are KPIs. So it's great, right? So we take the coaching goals for this particular chief marketing officer. We've got 5 coaching goals: train and run a marathon, attend seminars, read an industry book, public speaking, and spend 4 hours a week less time in departmental meetings. Okay, so across those 5 goals, they don't want to declare those goals to the HR department. So instead of doing that, what we do is we map them. We map the goals to their KPIs. And the KRAs for this particular role, the Chief Marketing Officer, are brand awareness, customer acquisition cost, return on marketing investment, CLV, and marketing share growth. And we've got the KPIs there in the second column, 3%, -5, 10. And we've got the weight of those KPIs. And then we've got the magic. The magic is the relevant coaching goals. Here, we haven't told HR, we haven't told finance what the specifics of each of the goals are. What this CMO is saying is that goal 1, goal 3, and goal 4 have contributed to that CMO's success in brand awareness as a KPI. Okay, and goals 2 and 3 have contributed to that CMO's success in the customer acquisition cost KPI. So we map them without having to breach the confidentiality of the executive, and that gives us a real monetary value as we look at the KPI in the organization. So the end result of that is we take the relevant coaching goals, we measure the value of the improvement on each of those KPIs. That's something that you all know how to do in your organizations. And then the CMO says, oh, well, look, my success isn't completely attributable to coaching. I was pretty good before the coach got here, but maybe 5% of brand awareness and my advancement in brand awareness. Yeah, we could I've got some really good ideas from coaching that I wouldn't have otherwise. So yeah, 5%. And you know what? I got a lot of good ideas and a lot of good new disciplines for customer acquisition. And so yeah, 20% of that KPI is attributable to coaching. And when we take all of these, they are all subjective, right? But they are subjective in the mind of the executive, not the coach. The coach doesn't make these decisions. Once they're mapped down, these individual little indicators create an incredible story. The incredible story here is that the total value of coaching is $3.7 million for this CMO in this role. And if the annual coaching fees are $60,000, that means there's an ROI on coaching of 62.9x over the period of a year. Fourth model, last one, I swear. This one comes from Jack Phillips at the ROI Institute, and he's got an amazing calculator for this. Actually, I designed the calculator based on his book, but there's a link to the book. If you want it, I'll share it with you, and he's not difficult to find. And all we do here is we look at the impact of, we look at the year-on-year benefits to the organization as a result of the influence of a CXO, of a coach on a CXO. And we've got product and operational efficiency, sales growth, direct cost reduction. So these are the actual year-on-year growth indicators. And here's several more, 1.5 million, 50,000, 2 million for employee satisfaction, customer satisfaction. These are all really good indicators of year-on-year growth. And at the end, what we end up with is that all of these things have value. The value, the total business improvement for this particular case study is $16.8 million. And that CEO has said, you know what, my performance in general, 25% of my performance comes down to the conversations and quality of improvement that has resulted from my executive coaching relationship. And therefore the coaching value is $4.2 million and the ROI is 70x. That's how these ROI calculations are made. I'm very happy to share, I have a course online for teaching you how to do this. And I've told Dhawal and the team that I'm happy to extend a 50% discount to anybody that wants to learn these models. And I will give you the calculators. I will give you the Excel workbooks and all of that. There's also a free course on my website if you want to go there. The one on your left is free course. It is a 20-minute micro course on executive coaching. So if you are interested in implementing executive coaching in your organization, I encourage you to do that. It's completely free. And then the one on the right, there's a 50% discount code. Just enter CXO Genie 50 at the payment, and you will have the calculators, all of the calculators. Plus, there's two more in there. There's the CEO burnout calculator, which will tell you exactly how much your organization will pay if your CEO has an anxiety attack or a burnout, right? Because there's an actual dollar figure to that. So you might want to know that as a CFO. And there's another one. There's a return on training and delay cost calculator for you to use with your HR and L&D professionals. All right. That is as much as I can tell you about executive coaching in under an hour. And I know it's a lot, but you asked for a masterclass and you got it. So now I am very happy to get out of this sharing mode here and take any questions that you may have for the next few minutes.
So thank you, Corrie. That was really insightful and an eye-opener in many ways. There are some questions in the chat box, so maybe I'll take them one by one and
Sure.
You can answer them. The first question is from Venkatesh. He asks, what is the difference in coaching approach towards executives in new age industries? So I believe new age industries, he's comparing traditional industries versus new age industries. So is there any difference in the coaching approach?
Well, look, yes, tactical, yes, but fundamental, no. Like, you're still dealing with human and human performance. So it comes down to mindset and skill set and then context, right? So mindset and skill set are the two big contexts. And then the context itself is broken down into biopsychosocial. Every performer in every domain. Bio meaning body, psycho meaning mind, and social meaning environmental, right? So the biopsychosocial model for coaching means that it's applicable across all domains. So you want a coach that can coach across multiple domains because that range exposure is going to give you access to higher quality and different kinds of information. But you definitely want a coach, no matter what your domain is, that has tools and training to affect mindset, to affect skill set, and to affect context. Right, so that's what you're looking for: mindset, skill set, and context. But yeah, in terms of different industries, like I said, I've done everything from traditional trade and FMCG to luxury shoes, oil and gas, banking, public sector, NGO. Like, And I've also done a lot of work with entrepreneurs and decentralized organizations. I myself have a fully decentralized organization. I've started and exited 5 of my own companies successfully, and now I have a company with I have a trade license with 0 employees in it. My own company has no employees because I'm drinking my own Kool-Aid on this. I have no employment contracts. Nobody that works with me works for me. Everybody that works with me works for themselves, and they work with me. And what that means is it's my job as the leader of the organization or the CEO of the organization to make sure that I'm improving the quality of their lives every day well enough that they want to stay, because there's no carrots, there's no sticks, there's no leashes, there's no cuffs, right? So I have to just be really, really good at working with people, and great executive coaches are great at working with people, every different kind of person in any different kind of domain. That doesn't mean that I can coach Michael Phelps in swimming, but in business, there's not much I can't do.
Amazing. So the next question is from Kesser. So he asks, what metrics or methods do you recommend organizations use to quantify the impact of executive coaching or both individual leaders and overall business performance? I think the ROI calculators answer that question themselves.
Yeah.
So I think I had a couple of questions as well. So it says, one of them is, when does one realize as an executive that they need an executive coach, right? So many times we're so busy, or we don't even realize when our performance is dipping, or when do we need help in which area, right? So how does one realize that they need an executive coach for themselves?
Yeah, there's typically 2 big indicators. One is positive and the other one is negative. So the positive one is when an athlete says, you know what, I might be able to make the Olympics. When an athlete runs fast enough that they realize that they're talented, everybody else is saying, wow, you're really fast. And then the athlete goes, yeah, I'm really fast. That's when they get a coach, because they realize actually their performance level is global, that they're beyond local or regional performance. Actually, they're a global level player in this particular game, whether it's athletics or violin or dancing, it doesn't matter, okay? That's when you usually get a coach, is like when you say, yeah, I can do this at a global performance level. The other one is if you're hitting a glass ceiling and you don't know why. If you are really talented, but your performance level is you're just always bumping against this glass ceiling. A glass ceiling has 2 major properties. 1, it's glass. You don't know what it's made of, okay? You can't see it. 2, it's a ceiling. You're gonna continually bump into it. You don't know how to fix it. And chances are that glass ceiling is something that only can be addressed by somebody who's not you, somebody outside of you who can say, actually, you know what? If you work on this, the same thing that Bob Bowman does for Michael Phelps, the same thing that Bill Campbell did for Eric Schmidt, Larry Page, and Sundar Pichai. He's the one that said, he's the one in the office of the CEO of Google saying, do it like this, and you'll be more effective. Okay, so if you're hitting against a glass ceiling, it's because you need to get somebody close enough to you to speak to you in a way that a coach speaks to you. Okay, and secondly, if you think you're talented enough in your economic game to reach a global performance level, 100% get a coach. That's how they get there.
Thank you so much for that. Basant has a question. What unique perspective or strategy do you bring as an executive coach that cannot be found through self-reflection, mentorship, or traditional leadership training programs? Can you explain with an example?
Yeah, I've got 80,000 hours of education and experience that nobody else has, because nobody else is me. My set of unique experiences and the value that I provide as an executive coach is not different from the unique set of experiences that you have and that you provide to your organization in your role as a CFO. Okay, each and every one of us is the subject matter expert in our particular library of experiences in education. My library of experiences in education happens to carry 2 master's degrees, 2 doctorate degrees. I've been published in 4 major different academic disciplines, including evolutionary psychology and history and business. And for me, my particular toolkit, my favorite toolkit is neuroscience. I'm a board certified master neuroplastician, and evolutionary psychology. Understanding why we make the decisions that we make as a result of the last million years of successful survival and adaptation that you're the product of. Okay, so if you're going to look at me as a particular brand of coach, it's neuroscience and evolutionary psychology. That's it.
Amazing. So I think we'll take one final question. So
Yeah.
I think this is one which is kind of confusing and people are kind of mixing this up. So the question is, what is the difference between a mentor and a coach?
That's really good. A mentor is a kind of coach. Okay. It's only in the business domain where certain organizations have promoted the idea that non-advisory coaching is the only kind of coaching, where we accept that that's true. We accept that non-advisory coaching is the only kind of coaching because guess what? If your coaching certification organization can convince the whole world that anyone can coach anyone in anything, okay, in order to do that, you have to provide a certification where the coach doesn't need to be an expert in the coachee's domain, okay? If all I'm doing is asking rhetorical and deep questions, I don't need to know anything about you or your domain in order to do that. And as a coaching organization, if I'm issuing a certification that says that anybody can coach anyone in anything, then my product has the whole world as its market, and the rest of the world is my client's market. It's a beautiful business proposition. Like, it's an absolutely amazing game. The whole world is my market. The rest of the world is your market, okay? But it doesn't work at the Olympic level. Bob Bowman never asks Michael Phelps, what do you think you should do today? And what sort of insights can we lead you to? No, Bob Bowman understands the game of swimming. Can Bob swim as well as Michael Phelps? No, he can't play the game as well as his athlete can, but he can coach at the athlete's level. And that's the biggest difference between executive coaching and other kinds of coaching. I can't play the business game as well as my executive athletes can, but I can coach at their level and they play better because I'm next to them.
Amazing. That was great insights, Corrie. Thank you so much for that.
My pleasure.
So I think we are almost at the end of this. Let me just quickly, Dr. Corrie, what we have done is we have planted a fruit tree in your name as a token of appreciation. So we will send over the certificate to you as well. And thank you so much for your time today. It was an absolute pleasure having you. There was some great insights. In fact, some eye-opening methods and ways to look at executive coaching and how they can improve business performance as well as executive performance. So thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Like, if your executive's performance isn't improving, then you have the wrong coach. But if your executive refuses coaching, you have the wrong executive.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much for that concluding thought. Thank you all for being here, and we'll hopefully see you in the next masterclass. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Have a great day.
Thank you so much.